We're going to make the Flashing Windmills Quilt Block together step by step. It's part of my Block of the Month series, and I'm going to put a link down below in the description with all the details if you'd like to know more. If you're new around here, my name's Stacey. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's make our quilt block. You can find a copy of these cutting instructions over on my website. I'll put a link down below. I also have a PDF pattern that you might like to purchase, and I'll put a link for that down below too. So on the wrong side of our A fabric, I'm going to draw a diagonal line from corner to corner on both sides. So I'll just take my ruler and line it up at the top and at the bottom, and then draw my line. And then I'll repeat that on this side. Then I'm going to take my C piece and place the two pieces right sides together and line up all my edges. And then when I'm happy that they're lined up nicely, I will pop some pins in so that they stay lined up nicely. And I'm just going to put them so that they're not in the way of our drawn lines, because we're going to sew along each of them. Okay, now let's sew. So now I'm going to sew along each side of our drawn line with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I've got my 1/4 inch foot on. I'm stitching at stitch length 2, and I'm using wonderful confetti thread. And I'll just start at the very beginning and sew all the way to the other edge. Coming off the edge, cutting my thread, and then I'll do exactly the same on the other side. And now I'll do exactly the same on the other drawn line. Now I'm going to remove my pins, and we're going to cut along our drawn lines. Now we're going to cut through the middle of our fabric, coming through the center on both sides, and then we're going to cut along our drawn line. So I'll just take my ruler, line up a line on my ruler on the edge of my fabric up the top here, then make sure it's lined up right where it intersects right here, then cut. And I'm using a rotating mat, so I'm just going to turn mine. If you've got a regular mat, that's fine. Oh, make sure it doesn't move. And then we'll do exactly the same on this side. And now I'm just going to cut along those diagonal lines. Okay, now we've got our 8 half square triangles. Now we're going to press them. So now with each of our half square triangles, we'll set the stitches and then open it up, and we're going to press towards our C fabric. So I'm going to give it a finger press so we don't have any creases in there. And then when I'm happy, press. And I'll repeat that for all 8 half square triangles. So now with our half square triangles, we need to trim them so they measure 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches, and I have a ruler that's the perfect size for that. If you don't, you do exactly what I'm going to show you, except you have to measure out the 3.5 inches on your ruler. It's doable, it just takes a little bit more time. So I'm just going to take my diagonal line and pop it on my seam right there, and then I'm just going to trim all 4 sides. Again, I'm using my rotating mat, which is a really nice tool to have, but not a necessity. So if you don't have one, then just carefully turn your half square triangles around as you need to. But if you don't have one, maybe you'd like to add one to your Christmas list, because they really do save a lot of time. And I'll put a link down below for this rotating mat. It's actually my favorite one. I've tried a whole heap out. And for just squaring up your blocks, it's definitely my favorite. It's the Omni Grid mat. So now we're going to take 4 of our half square triangles and place them so they match our image above, which is a classic pinwheel design. And just take your time. We want them to be placed correctly because it's much easier to put them in the correct position now than once we've sewn them together and realize we have to unpick our stitches. So that looks good to me. What we're going to do is we're going to sew row 1 together and then row 2 together. So I'll just set row 2 aside. And I'm going to take these 2 pieces and place them right sides together, and we're going to sew along this seam. So just picking it up, lining up all our edges, and we actually have nested seams but coming down on the diagonal here, and I can feel that they're nested really nicely. So I will just pop a pin in there to keep them in place. And then I'll pop another one here. I'll sew along the seam, and then I'll do exactly the same for the other set. Okay, all the settings are the same. I'm just going to sew along that seam with my 1/4 inch seam allowance. And do exactly the same for our second set. Okay, now we're going to press. So placing our rows back in the correct position, I will just set the stitches. And then what we're going to do is press our seams in alternating directions. So the first row, row 1, I'm going to press so they're coming to my left. I'm just going to finger press and then press. And then row 2, I'm going to press towards my right. So just pushing the seams over to my right, finger pressing and pressing. So placing our rows back in the correct position, we're going to place them right sides together and sew along this seam. But first I'll find where the seams meet and I'll nest those seams. So I'm just going to butt them up against each other and open it up and just check that it's creating a nice straight line. And when I'm happy, I'll pop a pin in right through the center there to hold it all in place. And then I will pop a pin in along this top edge. We want all our edges lined up nicely. And then we'll sew. Okay, removing my pins as they get in the way. And then we can just open it up and check we're happy with how all of our points met in the middle there, and I'm really happy with that. If you're not happy with that, you've got to decide, is it going to bother you? If it is, I do suggest unpicking those stitches and trying again. But if you're like, I can live with it, or it's okay, then just move on, because a finished quilt is a perfect quilt. Now what we need to do with our remaining half square triangles is make another pinwheel just like this. So now for each of our pinwheel blocks, we're going to set the stitches and then we're going to press our seams open. Now this is just a personal preference. If you don't want to press them open, just press them however you'd prefer. I'm just going to finger press it open, which can be a little bit fiddly, and then press. And then I'm just going to give it a press on the front as well, just so it's sitting really nicely. So if your block's looking a little bit wonky, what you can do is just quickly square it up to measure 6.5 inches by 6.5 inches. So now we're just going to place our pieces so they're in the correct position, matching our image above. And this is a really simple block once we've finished making our pinwheels. And then all I'm going to do is sew row 1 together and row 2 together, then press the seams in alternating directions towards our B fabric, and then sew our rows together, and then our block is finished. So I'll just place row 1 right sides together, set those to a side, line up the edges and pin. So now I'm just going to press my seams open again on my block. And then I'll just flip it around and give it a once over on the top. And there we have our Flashing Windmills Quilt Block. Now, isn't that really simple, but still quite striking? I think it's adorable. I hope you liked our Flashing Windmills Quilt Block this month. If you're looking for other blocks to make, I'm going to put the playlist up above for you with all our blocks we've made this year as part of our 2025 Block of the Month. Thanks so much for watching until the very end. I really appreciate you.